Hello, and welcome to the safety orientation for the Pulice family of companies. This includes Pulice Construction, Roadway Electric, and McNeil Brothers. During this presentation, we will review company policies and procedures. The Pulice Safety Program is based on 100% employee involvement and driven from all levels. Safety is recognized as important by everyone here at Pulice family of companies, from senior management through project management, supervisors, and foremen. During your employment here, we will provide you with the training and tools necessary, and along with your commitment, we will be able to meet our goal of 0 injuries. Your safety is important to us, and if at any time you feel your work conditions are unsafe, you have the right to stop working, and we will work with you to help solve your concerns. All the site-specific training required for your site will be provided by your foreman and supervisor. Your immediate supervisor will provide you with information such as where to park, how to access the job site, and the location of the emergency meeting point. Medical care information will be posted on the bulletin board at every job site trailer. It is important to be aware of the specifics of your site because the conditions can change daily. No personal cell phone use on job sites. The only exception to this is during your lunch break. Smoking is only allowed in designated areas and not anywhere close to a location where gas or fuel is stored. Only company-approved employees may drive company vehicles. This applies for driving the company vehicles anywhere, including on the job site. DOT drivers must adhere to all state and federal motor carrier laws. Seat belts are mandatory in all company vehicles and equipment at all times. No headphones or any kind of audio equipment that will prevent you from hearing potential hazards. Hearing protection provided for you is not included in this. No employees are to be transported in the back of company trucks. To be in a vehicle, each person must have a seat and seat belt. No firearms or weapons to be present on the job site. Regardless of how minor the injury appears to be, all injuries must be reported to your supervisor immediately. We do this to ensure you receive the necessary medical treatment to prevent minor issues from becoming major. Equipment or auto damage must also be reported to your supervisor immediately. All site trailers are equipped with first aid supplies, and all superintendent's vehicles contain first aid kits. All project managers, engineers, and superintendents are trained and certified to provide first aid. Non-emergency injuries requiring medical treatment will be treated at a local occupational medical clinic designated by the safety department. For all serious and urgent injuries, 911 will be called. Our drug and alcohol policy includes testing for pre-employment, post-accident, and reasonable suspicion. Violation of this policy may result in disciplinary action up to and including termination. Employees are prohibited from unlawfully manufacturing, distributing, dispensing, possessing, or using alcohol or controlled substances. This includes the misuse or abuse of prescription drugs. If the drugs are prescribed to someone other than you, they are viewed the same way as illegal narcotics. Hard hats must be worn 100% of the time. The only exception to this is while you are inside the enclosed cab of equipment or inside a vehicle. The company-issued hard hat shall be worn. This will be issued to you on your first day of employment. Do not alter the hard hat in any way. Hard hats are good for 5 years. The manufacturer's date can be found under the brim. Hard hat liners are good for 2 years and need to be inspected for damage or wear. Using the hollow space in the hard hat to store items is strictly prohibited, as well as extremely dangerous. This air gap is there to absorb the impact, and by putting something in that space, the protection of the hard hat is minimized. Wearing of baseball caps with buttons in the top or pins on it is also prohibited, as the pin will cause harm if the hard hat takes an impact. Dust masks are provided for voluntary use as according to OSHA's Appendix D. Make sure to follow all provided manufacturer's instructions on how to use the masks. Keep clean and store properly. Dust masks are the only item we allow to be stored in the air gap or hollow space of the hard hats. This is because it keeps the masks clean and doesn't affect the hard hat's functionality. Dispose of masks when they are dirty, as they no longer stop particles and can affect airflow for breathing. Noise exposure over 85 decibels requires hearing protection. This is the level above which prolonged exposure will permanently damage your hearing. Most of the tools and equipment present on the sites operate at a volume of over 85 decibels. So hearing protection is recommended when working with or around equipment and machinery. Employees are required to wear an over-the-ankle leather work boot. Some clients require hard-toe boots. This will depend on the job. We also require employees to wear long pants and a shirt with a sleeve of at least 4 inches. Save your shorts for the beach. Safety glasses must be worn at all times when a hazard is present. Many people end up with objects in their eye simply by being near tools when being used, even if they aren't using the tools themselves. Dark lenses are not to be worn inside of buildings or when dark. All eyewear must be Z87 approved. This includes prescription glasses. Z87 is the minimum protective standard required by OSHA. Side shields must be used with prescription glasses. In place of this, you must wear over-the-glasses glasses. If cutting or grinding, safety glasses must be used in addition to safety face shield or a similar layer of protection. Gloves are to be worn when handling materials. It is important to select the proper glove for the job being performed. We provide a variety of gloves for different purposes, such as rubber gloves for use with concrete and leather gloves for handling materials. While performing hot work, a fire extinguisher must be readily accessible. Inspect fire extinguisher before use. All our fire extinguishers are ABC type extinguishers, and so they are useful for a variety of fires. This is so you are able to use any extinguisher accessible rather than having to search for the right type. If the fire is too large to handle yourself, sound the alarm and evacuate the area immediately. Ensure the fire extinguisher has been inspected. Verify extinguisher has been inspected for the current month and is documented on the tag. Verify the pin is in place. Verify the extinguisher has a full charge. Also, turn extinguisher upside down and check to see if contents shift around. This is to ensure that the contents aren't compacted at the bottom of the extinguisher. If contents are compacted at the bottom, take a rubber mallet and tap the bottom of the extinguisher to loosen the contents. We advise the use of the pass technique. Pull the pin, aim the nozzle, squeeze the handle, sweep the base of the fire. The reason for sweeping the base of the fire is to suffocate it by removing the oxygen. Without access to oxygen, the fire will die. We follow a color coding system for our monthly inspections. This color code is used for ladders, both metal and fiberglass, power tools, including cords and generators, fall protection, and lifting devices. All items need to be inspected daily as well as by those working with them, but monthly they need to be inspected and given the color for that month. Never join 2 ladders together to make a longer ladder. Check weight limitations of the ladder prior to use. Keep shoes free of mud and grease. Never hand carry materials or tools up a ladder. Use a tag line to hoist them up. On equipment, place items on step or fender above the ladder and then climb up. You must be able to maintain 3 points of contact at all times, including ladders on equipment. Only one person at a time may work from a single ladder, unless it is designed otherwise. Inspect ladder prior to use and do not use extension or step ladder if there is a missing, weakened, broken, or otherwise defective part. Tag it out of service and remove from the work area. Metal and fiberglass ladders must be inspected and color-coded before being used. Wood ladders need to be inspected daily. Use caution when ladders are used in high-traffic areas. Do not climb the back section of a step ladder. Keep area around base of ladder free of clutter and materials. Step ladders shall not be used when leaned up against an object. The ladder must be completely opened up. Do not stand or sit on the top or the second rung of a step ladder. Step ladders should be fully opened and the cross braces locked in place. Do not stand on top or next to the top rung. Do not walk ladders. Climb down and move them to their new position. Walking ladders can warp the frame and reduce the structural integrity and the weight capacity of the ladder. Set up extension ladders at a 4-to-1 rise to run angle. If the wall is 20 feet high, the bottom of the ladder needs to be 5 feet out from the base of the wall. Secure ladders at the top and bottom. If the ladder is in a trench, bracing the base of the ladder against the other wall of the trench is acceptable as securing it. Top of the ladder should extend minimum of 3 feet above the ladder's landing. Falls are the leading cause of fatalities in the construction industry. Cover or guard openings greater than 2 inches. Floor hole covers must be able to support 2 times the intended weight, secured and marked with either hole or cover. Any employee exposed to a fall greater than 6 feet must be protected by one of the following: guardrail systems, personal fall arrest or restraint systems, or safety nets. Inspect systems monthly and before each use for wear, damage, and other deterioration. Must have monthly color to show inspection has been completed. Remove systems and components from service immediately if they are defective or have been subjected to a fall impact. Do not attach fall arrest systems to guardrail systems or hoists. These are not designed to support the force generated by a fall. In general, it is much better to use fall prevention systems such as guardrails than fall protection systems such as fall arrest devices because they provide more positive safety means. Anchorage points must be independent of an anchorage that is also being used to support or suspend platform, and must be capable of supporting at least 5,000 pounds per employee. When using a lanyard, retractable or restraint, always choose an anchorage point overhead. Check manufacturer specifications as to whether or not a lanyard is a tie-back lanyard. If it is not made specifically for use as a tie-back lanyard, do not attempt to use it as one under any circumstance. Typical components of a fall arrest system are body harness, a lanyard or vertical lifeline, which must be shock absorbing, dual-legged lanyard to ensure 100% tie-off, a retractable lifeline or yo-yo, a horizontal lifeline, these must be engineered, or restraints. This illustration shows the distance a person would fall if they were tied off above their head with a 6-foot lanyard. When you add the lanyard length to the length of the deceleration device, the distance from the D-ring to the worker's feet, and add some stretch factor, the distance the worker will fall is almost 18 feet. This is important to consider when many of the heights employees work at are less than 18 feet, but over the 6-foot minimum that requires fall protection. This situation would require other types of fall protection, such as the retractable fall protection or yo-yos. Back injuries are one of the leading injuries in the construction industry, and most of them are easily preventable by using the proper planning and techniques. It is important to remember to never lift items that are too heavy, to always get help, and have a plan before you lift. The proper positioning and technique that will save you from back injury is as follows. Keep your knees bent and your back straight, and keep the load close and do not twist. Rather than putting stress on your back, use mechanical lifting devices when possible. Examples of lifting devices are hoists, cranes, hand truck, come-along, forklift. All equipment must be inspected prior to each use. Equipment is color-coded monthly to show inspection is up to date. Inspect all tools monthly and prior to use. Tools cannot be used if they have not been inspected and color-coded for that month. Tag out damaged and faulty electrical equipment and remove it from service immediately. Only use GFCI protected electrical sources on construction sites. Tools without a ground plug must be double insulated. The image of a square inside another square is the symbol used to represent double insulation. Many times you will not find double insulation written on a tool, only this symbol. Ensure tools are in good working condition prior to use and ensure guards are in place. Only use tools for their intended purpose. Just because a tool is capable of being used for a certain task does not mean it is suitable for that task. Use the proper personal protective equipment, such as safety glasses, face shield for grinding, or gloves. Employees are responsible for inspecting tools and equipment prior to use. This includes all personal tools. If you find that a tool or equipment is damaged or defective, tag it out of service and remove it from the work area. This also includes all personal tools. All equipment and vehicles must be inspected prior to use. Many injuries occur due to poor housekeeping. To prevent this, employees must clean up their work area as the day progresses. Protect yourself and others by keeping a neat and organized work area. A clean work site is a safe work site. The following areas need to remain free from obstruction: aisles, exits, fire extinguishers, emergency equipment, and all electrical controls and switches. Only use properly rated rigging equipment. In the case of chains, only grade 80 and grade 100 are to be used for lifting. Anything less is a transport chain, useful only for tying things down, not for lifting. Inspect all rigging prior to use for damage or wear. Look for cracked, stretched, or bent links on chains. Ensure the manufacturer's tag is still in place. If rigging equipment is damaged or faulty, or if manufacturer's tag is gone, remove from service immediately. In the case of synthetic or nylon slings, look for acid or caustic burns, melting or charring of any part, snags, punctures, tears, or cuts, broken or worn stitches, distortion of fittings. If any of these are present, remove the sling from service. When using slings, protect from sharp edges of the load by placing pads over the sharp edges, and do not place your hands between the sling and its load when the sling is being tightened around the load. When rigging with a synthetic sling, always put the tag towards the hook so tag can still be read. It is your right to know what chemicals or materials you are working with. The purpose of HAZCOM is to prevent the occurrence of work-related illnesses and injuries caused by chemicals. It is your right to know of any hazardous chemicals or materials that you are working with or around. You should know the location of the Material Safety Data Sheet, MSDS, book, and the written HAZCOM program. All of the job site trailers contain MSDS books and the information for 3E Company, the third-party MSDS provider. MSDS sheets are documents provided by the supplier of a chemical, and they contain manufacturing company information, hazardous ingredients, physical data, fire and explosion data, health hazard information, reactivity data, spill, leak, and disposal procedures, special protection information, or PPE, and special precautions. The other part of the HAZCOM program is that all containers must be labeled. All chemical containers must be labeled to identify contents and hazards. Most labels use colors to represent the type of hazard posed by the contents of the container, and numbers to indicate the level of hazard. Fire has a red color, health has a blue color, reactivity has a yellow color. The number is used to indicate the degree of hazard, ranging from 0 being minimal hazard to 3 being a serious hazard. Always be aware of chemicals other trades are using in your work area. Feel free to ask. Information and training shall be received anytime a new hazardous chemical is introduced into your work area. Always check containers for labels, and remember that secondary containers must be labeled with the chemical name and hazards. Notify your supervisor of any unlabeled chemical containers. Employees must take ownership of the project's safety. When you see a hazard on the job, you need to correct the problem or report it to your supervisor. Always inspect work area before work begins to recognize the hazards in your work area, like overhead loads, falling objects, pinch points, etc. When you are asked who is responsible for safety, the answer is, I am. Due to their toxic effects, both manganese and hexavalent chromium in welding fumes have been the subject of increased attention. Welding ordinary carbon steel with the most common welding processes releases manganese into the shop air. Overexposure to manganese has been shown to cause damage to the brain and cause a long list of ailments. OSHA has recently adopted a new permissible exposure limit for hexavalent chromium of CR6. This PEL is set forth in 29 CFR 1910. Source capture or local exhaust ventilation is likely to be most effective at reducing welder exposure than dilution ventilation. Do not remove guarding unless lockout/tagout has been performed. All guards must remain in place during the operation of machinery. Inspect all guarding before operating machinery. All damaged guarding must be replaced. Machinery or equipment cannot be operated if guards or other safety devices are broken or missing. If this is the case, the machinery or equipment is required to be tagged out until the guard or device is fixed and returned. Lockout/tagout are techniques used to prevent the release of hazardous energy, or to prevent hazardous energy from escaping. A padlock is placed on the appropriate energy isolating device that is in the off or closed position. Lockout/tagout addresses the fatal five main causes in workplace injuries. These are failure to stop equipment, failure to disconnect from the power source, failure to dissipate, bleed, or neutralize residual energy, accidental restarting of equipment, and failure to clear work areas before restarting. A separate training class is given on lockout/tagout. Never attempt lockout/tagout unless you have been trained. Never loan or share your lock or key with anyone else. Always be sure all lockout/tagout devices are compatible with the environment in which they will be used. For example, do not use a paper tag somewhere where it will be exposed to the weather. A confined space is defined as limited access and egress, large enough for a person to work in, not designed for continuous human occupancy. Some examples of confined space are tanks, vaults, manholes, and pits. A confined space is considered permit required if any of the following are true. It contains or has a potential to contain a hazardous atmosphere. It contains a material that has the potential for engulfing an entrant. Has an internal configuration such that an entrant could be trapped or asphyxiated by inwardly converging walls or by a floor which slopes downward and tapers to a smaller cross-section. Or it contains any other recognized serious safety or health hazard. Common confined space hazards include, but are not limited to, oxygen levels outside of acceptable range of 19.5% to 23.5%, flammable or explosive gases such as methane, toxics such as hydrogen sulfide or carbon monoxide, physical hazards such as flooding, caving in, collapsing overhead loads, etc., biological hazards such as hepatitis, and any unknown hazards that may also exist. Test internal atmosphere before entering space. Test at different levels. Work from the top down, testing at every 4 feet. Document the results on the confined space permit. Scaffolds are inspected and tagged daily and are assigned 3 different colors: green, yellow, and red. Green indicates the all clear. Yellow indicates that hazards are present. Recognize the hazards and proceed with caution. Red means no entry. Training on scaffold safety will advise you on how to protect yourself from electrical hazards, fall hazards, and falling object hazards. Electrical hazards. Maintaining clearance between scaffold equipment and power lines is crucial to worker safety. Safe distance must be kept between energized power lines and any conductive material on the scaffolding. This clearance must be maintained when scaffolds are erected, used, dismantled, altered, or moved. Each employee on a scaffold more than 10 feet above a lower level must be protected from falling to that lower level. This is an exception to the usual requirement that workers who are exposed to a 6-foot or more fall require fall protection, as it allows fall protection to be installed as scaffolding is being erected. The 2 types of fall protection are personal fall arrest system, guardrail systems. Different types of scaffolds require different types of fall protection. Employees must be protected from falling hand tools, debris, and other small objects. Protection is gained through the installation of toe boards, screens, guardrail systems, debris nets, catch platforms, canopy platforms, canopy structures that contain or deflect the falling objects, and roping off or blocking off areas underneath scaffolding. This represents an example of why a scaffold might have red tape. Never operate equipment without proper training. Seatbelts must be worn at all times. Maintain eye contact with all workers on the ground. Complete daily equipment inspection pre- and post-shift. Check backup alarms, glass, mirrors, and guards, and notify the supervisor of any defects needing repair. Maintain 3 points of contact on ladders while entering and exiting equipment. No riders on equipment, no exceptions. All employees who operate forklifts will be trained by an authorized instructor. This training must be updated every 3 years. One of the serious exposures to injury is working in trenches. Prior to digging, ensure that all utilities are properly marked and located. This includes blue stake confirmation and potholing of utilities. Pothole utilities by hand or vac truck. It is not considered potholing if you are using a backhoe or a track hoe. Trenches will be inspected by the competent person daily, prior to work and when conditions change. Means of access, egress, is required when trench depth is 4 feet or greater. Employees shall not work more than 25 feet from the access egress point. This means an access point or ladder is required every 50 feet. Ladders should extend 3 feet above the landing. Trenches greater than 5 feet in depth must be protected with one of the following protective systems: sloping, benching, shoring, or shielding. Different grades of soil require different amounts of sloping. The competent person will carry out testing to determine the soil type. The majority of Arizona soils are type C, which means that because they are so granular and coarse, they must be sloped at more of an angle. This type of soil cannot be benched. Spoil piles should be at least 2 feet back from the edge of the trench to allow a walkway or access path to run alongside the edge of the trench. This 2-foot distance back from the edge applies to generators and tools as well. Before we dig, we first have to identify our underground utilities. The table on screen shows the different utilities that could be present at job sites and the color code used to identify them. Job safety analysis. JSAs are important because safety planning is critical. One can plan work and leave safety out. However, one cannot plan safety and leave work out. Hazard analysis is done prior to beginning work. The JSA is to be done by the crew at the work area. From left to right, the crew identifies a step for a task being performed. They then identify at least 2 hazards for every step, and 1 control for every potential hazard identified. The crew repeats this for a minimum of 5 steps. Once filled out, the crew then signs the JSA. On the reverse is a list of potential hazards and controls to give the crew an idea of what to look for. Also on the back is an area for the crew to sign off once the shift is complete, noting that they have had no incidents that shift. A supervisor will review and score the JSA completed by the crew. The scoring system, which is 1 to 7 points, is explained on the reverse. The JSA must be completed to at least a 5, or the crew will be required to redo it. The JSA has many benefits. It helps to identify existing and potential hazards and consequences of exposure. It provides an understanding of non-routine tasks as opposed to regular tasks. It helps to determine the best method of how to carry out work in an effective and safe manner. This concludes our safety orientation training. Thank you for joining us.
Now let's talk about some employment policies that affect us all. Hello, my name is Mimi Berryman, and I am your Equal Employment Opportunity Officer, referred to as EEO Officer, and your Human Resources Manager. Our company is committed to providing you with a fair and professional working environment. Employees are expected to treat each other with respect at all times. We also promote open communication and encourage employees to come forward with any concerns, complaints, or questions. Our company maintains a policy of non-discrimination with all employees, as well as those applying for employment. This means that all aspects of employment with the company will be governed on the basis of merit, competence, and qualifications, and will not be influenced in any manner by race, color, religion, gender, age, genetic information, national origin, disability, or veteran status. please refer to the company's EEO policy statement that is posted on all bulletin boards on the job sites and in the various offices of the company. We are also committed to providing a harassment-free working environment. Harassment, and in particular sexual harassment, is defined as unwelcome conduct, whether verbal, physical, or visual, that creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment. Harassment may include derogatory remarks, offensive jokes, the display or circulation of offensive printed or visual material, or offensive physical actions. Harassment is illegal. Harassment of any kind will not be tolerated and should be reported immediately to your supervisor or human resources so the situation can be promptly investigated and remedied. All employees are responsible for helping to enforce this policy against harassment. Employees often say they are being harassed when they are subjected to inappropriate conduct or behavior which is not illegal, but is unacceptable in the workplace. The term frequently used to describe this type of behavior and conduct is workplace bullying. Workplace bullying is repeated mistreatment of one or more employees using humiliation, intimidation, and denigration of performance. Bullying behavior can exist at any level in an organization. Bullying is not illegal, however, it is not acceptable and must be reported so the behavior can be stopped. Our company will not retaliate against any employee who, in good faith, makes a complaint of employment discrimination or harassment, or who participates in an investigation. Retaliation is a violation of the company's equal employment opportunity and anti-harassment policies and should be reported immediately. Any employee found to have directly or indirectly retaliated against another employee who reports, opposes, or participates in an investigation of discrimination or harassment will be subject to discipline up to and including termination of employment. Our company is also committed to providing reasonable accommodations to qualified disabled employees to enable them to perform the essential functions of their job. Any employee who has a disability and feels that he or she needs an accommodation should notify Human Resources. Every job is important to our organization. No matter which position you are in, your duties are necessary to the efficient operation of this company. Your absence and tardiness disrupt workflow and can cause undue hardship on fellow workers and schedules. For these reasons, your regular attendance and punctuality are essential. If you are going to be late or absent for any reason, your supervisor must be notified before your regularly scheduled start time or as soon as practicable. It is your responsibility to keep your supervisor informed if it appears that your absence will be prolonged. You will be given your supervisor's phone number and the job site phone number at your orientation. Be sure to keep your phone number current with us as well. If you are absent from work without contacting and getting approval from your supervisor for 3 or more consecutive business days, you will be considered a voluntary quit. After 1 day of not calling and getting approval, termination will be at the supervisor's discretion. Please be sure to read the policies given to you in your orientation folder, as they are designed to protect you and the company. And remember, your employment with the company is on an at-will basis, which means the employment relationship may be terminated at any time by either the employee or the company, with or without cause and with or without notice. Should you have any questions on any of our policies or need to speak to me, please feel free to call me at the main office at 602-944-2241. You can also reach out to your direct supervisor, the job site manager, or the safety director. And for those of you that are union members, you always have your business agent as well. On behalf of the leadership, I welcome you to the best company in our industry.